Assalamu alaikum, brothers. Again, welcome to another week of MOD. Inshallah, please excuse me if I don't do justice to this talk. Barbar Ahmad. He's been arrested for more than 7 years, and we recently just heard about him. Or I have myself just recently heard about him. But this is one case in alongside many other cases. These cases you see started to pop up more frequently about 10 years ago. Who could tell me what happened about 10 years ago? Any ideas? 10 years ago. September 11th. 10 years ago. September 11th. And when September 11th happened, this so-called war started. This war on a feeling that George Bush had. The feeling was called terror, and so he started a war on it. This war on terror has gone from Afghanistan to the Philippines, Somalia, and we all know that lie they gave about Iraq, about weapons of mass destruction, which they've not found anything still to this day, to even Pakistan. It's spilled over to Pakistan, and there's many other nations that's, become victims of this war on terror. But as nations became victims, so did certain individuals picked out where they were, in America, here in Britain as well. And one case, as we were, is Barbar Ahmad. So who is this Barbar Ahmad? What did he do? Did he do something special? Was he someone special? Was he like a scholar? Or who was Barbar Ahmad? Barbar Ahmad was a 37-year-old Pakistani. He was born and raised here. He went to school, college, uni, and he used to work as an in the IT department in the Imperial College London. Simple guy. That's it. That's the guy that we're talking about today. Compare that to yourself. You were born here, majority of us. You were raised here. You went to school here, you went to college. Inshallah, some of us went to uni, some of us will be going to uni. We work here, that's it, that's what we do. This guy used to live in Tooting, which is not too far from here. Tooting, just up the road, literally. Some of us will probably come further than that. In December 2003, in a dawn raid, the police went through his front door, arrested him under the anti-terror law. He was, during his arrest and the journey to the police station, he suffered 73 injuries to the point he was bleeding from his ear and even bleeding through his urine. While he was in his urine, they found blood. To that extent, we're not talking about a 3-4 day journey or an ordeal, or like a week ordeal, or being in a torture camp. No, I'm talking about being arrested and taken to the police station. He suffered 73 injuries. 7 days later, they released him. No charges. 7 days later, you go home. After arresting him, physically abusing him, locking him up for 7 days, they just told him to go home. That's it. You could just go. That's your job done. This was a mistake. You could go. Obviously, he filed a complaint, and in 2009, the court gave him £60,000 in compensation for the initial arrest. What happened to him in that? So that brings to light that he wasn't just making stuff up. These things did actually happen to him, and they've even admitted it. But there's been no apology. To this day, they've never apologized. They've said, yeah, we've done it, here's the money, but there's no apology. But after he was released, it took some time to get back into his normal everyday life, gone back to work. Less than a year later, in August 2004, he was arrested again. This time, he was arrested on the way back on the way from his work to his home place, where he was arrested under what they call the extradition warrant from the US. The US, there's a law, I don't know if you've any of you came across this law is actually a joke, where the US is allowed to take anyone they want with no evidence required, but Britain can't do the same thing back. This is the law that Britain or America so-called used to get this man arrested, but yet after 7 years he hasn't still been extradited, or he hasn't faced trial, or he hasn't seen the evidence that they have against him. Nothing. For 7 years he was moved around from prison to prison, to the point where he came to, they just left him in a cell with about 7 other people in a small cell, just day in and day out he spent in that cell. But that's not the worst part. If he does get extradited to the US, he's facing life without parole in solitary confinement. That's literally, there's no hope for him after that. That is it. There is no release after that. So seeing this dire situation, and there's no way to turn, because there's no one out there that really cares, because the way the British media, or the way the British police showed it, was that America wanted him. But America didn't show as much interest as Britain wanted him out. The case, as you know, still goes on. Facing this situation, his family and friends decided that we're going to have to do something. We're going to have to get the attention of the Ummah, the Muslims, people to help us. So they signed up for the e-petition. If you don't know what the e-petition is a petition that you sign, and if you get 100,000 signatures, the Parliament, or the House of Lords, I think, is that will discuss it. They've reached that mark, and they've gone over. It became the 4th largest, or the 4th most, I'm guessing the 4th largest e-petition right now. The 4th largest. But from what I've read so far, I don't think, from recent news, I don't think, from what the Conservatives have already told their supporters to ignore it. To ignore it, just leave it, let it go. So that situation is still bleak. So we make dua, inshallah, we should all go make dua for this brother, for his safe return home, and for any other Muslim who's facing the same thing. But one thing we're going to take away from this e-petition particularly is that many people signed that petition, and many people didn't. Some people didn't sign it out of fear, some people just didn't sign it out of, just they weren't bothered. But some people signed it and thought that was it. That's their job done. That was what they had to do to help this brother. This was it. This was the point. Just sign a petition, and that's my business. I don't, if it's free, it's free. If it's not, it's not. I've done my part. I could stand in front of Allah, Day of Judgment, and it'll be fine. As Muslims, we should never become so lax to think that, I've done enough for a brother who's facing such a situation. And if individuals start doing that, then we see that as a collective, people start becoming the same way, where the whole community will just sign a petition and be that's done. A few years later, we won't even know what's happened to the brother. So it's important to keep that in mind, that even though we've signed the petition, if you signed it, you signed it. If you haven't, it's done now. They've reached it anyway. But we should never become, lax in just signing things and that's my job done. That's one thing we get from the petition, but that's not the main thing we're focusing on today. The main thing we're focusing on today is, why was Barbar Ahmad arrested? Why did the British police raid his house and then release him and then re-arrest him? What was the evidence they used against him? On what grounds did they arrest him? One of the reasons that they arrested him is because, if you read on Barbar Ahmad, he used to have a web page that used to show support to the Chechnyan mujahideen or freedom fighters at the time in the 1990s when Russia was invading, Chechnya is a part of Russian land right now, and Russia was oppressing Chechnya, so people fought back. People fought back in the 1990, people fought back, the Muslims fought back. During that time, those people weren't terrorists, those people were freedom fighters. Those very people that he was showing support to when they were fighting were freedom fighters. But now, when he showed support to them, he's arrested for terrorism. The very same people were freedom fighters to the British back then. The very same people he showed support to he's now arrested due to that. Another reason he was arrested, another evidence they used is, they found a brochure in his father's place. A brochure of, he had the Empire State Buildings in it, on the brochure. It was from a holiday his father took, I think it was in 1979 or something. They used that as evidence to say they were planning to blow up the Empire State Building. Even though they gave that back, they still used it as evidence. They also had this, they also put forward this evidence of how he had plans for a military warship or something like that. These were things that they pushed forward, but yet there's no one's ever seen these evidence. No one's pushed forward. No one's had a trial. Nothing's happened. Don't think that because they're pushing this forward, there is no evidence, and they still could push him, extradite him to the US without this. It's perfectly fine. That's the law. But the main thing we look at is why they use this. What is the purpose? If you've noticed over the last 10 years since this war on terror, which has only been war in the Muslim countries, the war on terror has not only been a physical war, but it's also been intellectual war. They have been pushing certain ideas, very subtly sometimes and very overtly sometimes, just in your face, through the politicians, through media, through thinkers. And if you look back, maybe it's just gone from your head now, but if you look back, if you study, if you go through, you see that over time, these attacks have been getting more and more and more and more and more outrageous as time goes on. More outrageous. Some people say we could sit silently and just it will go away. But it hasn't. It's just become more outrageous. Who remembers that film Fitna? Who was that done by? Geert Wilders. What was he? Huh?
Dutch.
Yeah, Dutch what? Dutch MP. Why would a politician need to make a movie about Islam? Then we got Tony Blair coming out and making statements about how this so-called Sharia is barbaric and backwards. What is Sharia? Who can tell me what Sharia is?
The law of Islam.
The laws of Islam are backwards and barbaric. Take that, the laws of Islam are backwards and barbaric. Tony Blair, when he was still, in power. We still have more. Who remembers that book? I think it was Jewel of Medina. Anyone remember that book? The Jewel of Medina. Who was that about? Who was that? Who did they write that about? Aisha. I read a statement by someone who had read the book. This was a non-Muslim, by the way, and they wrote, "This book is disgusting. It makes no sense, but yet bookshops have it in number 2. You know how they have rankings? Book 1, the top sellers. It was ranked number 2." And this woman was describing the book as grotesque, disgusting, and was going, there is no way this book is number 2. Even from its record of sales, it shouldn't be at number 2. So why was it pushed? These are some. I didn't want to go into too much. These are just some. The politicians, these are thinkers, and the media. Who remembers the cartoons? The cartoons about our Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. In Bangladesh, they had pictures of our Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. In Bangladesh is where most of us are from. and yet no one could do anything. This is the situation. As the time goes on, you see more and more outrageous things coming out. Who remembers the Pope? The Pope, he made a statement. Out of the blue, it has nothing to do with anything he was talking about. And what did he make a statement about? He made a statement about our Rasul, saying all he did, all he's done is come and brought death and destruction. Why would such a figure, this is the head Christian or Catholic figure in the world, making a statement like that? Why? What was so necessary for him to make a statement like this? What was he trying to prove? What point was he trying to make? Making a statement like that. We see as time goes on, more and more people will step forward. And we're not talking about everyday Joe bloggers on the street. We're talking about politicians, people who are seen on TV, people who other people respect, step forward and make statements that attack Islam, demonize Islam, show Islam as backwards and barbaric, how we brutalize our women. These are some of the statements that you hear all the day. The Sun, go read the Sun. You see, just, Doc, don't go read the Sun, but if you... This is one of the main culprits, is they just ample things. Just the other day they had a show about, I think a few brothers, might have burnt some poppies and whatnot. You remember that? This was a full-long show of these, this group, something against the Crusades. Who knows what group it was? Anyone? Muslims against Crusade. They banned that group because they done an action. But this was shown as, this is what Islam is. This is what will happen if Sharia comes. They'll burn poppies. That's it. That's what we do. We have nothing better to do but burn poppies. But this is I've only randomly picked, but if you look back, you see that these things we might have forgotten, it slipped our mind, but it's there, and it's picking up. And as time goes on, this is being pushed. So we look at Barbar Ahmad, and the reason he was arrested. What was he arrested for? Because he spoke the haqq. He spoke the haqq. He stood up against, when all this was happening, he stood up and he spoke the haqq. He said the people of Chechnya have a right to defend themselves, and he was arrested for that. That's the only reason he was arrested. Because the people of Chechnya have the right to defend themselves. He didn't sell weapons, train people, he didn't make explosives. He didn't do anything like that. He just said a word. He spoke the haqq. And I want to link this back to the time of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. When they were facing, when Islam came, the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam started slowly growing, his small band of group. You see that at first, these people, the Quraysh, they called him mad. They tried ignoring him actually. Then they called him mad. Then they started, slandering him, calling him names and whatnot. And what did they do after that? When they realized none of this was working?
Torture.
Torture. Boycott, torture. And this happened during the time of the Rasul. So who better to gain, who better to look at for what we do in a situation like this than the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself? In a situation like this, did he sit back? Did he sit back? Did he look at, did he think, oh, this is like, it's too much. Maybe I should go undercover for a bit. No. Did his followers, did the Sahabas, male or female, do that? No. We hear great stories from them. They stood up. They never sat back. They never allowed anything. They never, stopped or become scared of what was going to happen to them. But yet today we have many organizations and many people who have fallen for this trap. I don't want to go into names and whatnot. You could go look at these groups, many of them, who do, well, I call them Muslim, but, you know, some of the actions are borderline. These people are, you know, just recently, I don't know, actually recently, in Oxford, is it Oxford? They had that woman lead the Jamaat. I was okay. Was it Oxford? I'm not too sure. A woman led the Jamaat. They have gay mosques where homosexuals go to. This is just the beginning. And as time goes on, we see that this government or this pressure from the politicians and the media to demonize Islam, if you can't stop it, what are they going to do? They're going to try to change it. They're going to slowly change the deen. And we see that happening. And when people like Barbar Ahmad speak out for the haqq, the truth, they get shut down. And if we do nothing, you know, if we sit around and, you know, just sign a petition and that's it for us, sooner or later, we're going to have gay mosques everywhere. Ooh, the multicolored flags flying around. That's the future. That's what's going to happen. And I link it to Christianity. About 50 years ago, you weren't allowed to be gay. Look at it now. Brighton. You don't want to go there. Where's the other place? Where is it? San Francisco. I just heard about it. I've never gone there. They call it is the homeland of homosexuality. This is the future. This is the future. And you know, if you ask a Christian now, they got gay bishops, gay priests. I'm not saying this Christianity. Let's compare to Christian. This is how the Christians went, but this is the same thing that's happening. A reform, as they call it. Well, and there's also organizations who are out there who pretend to be Islamic organizations, who push forward un-Islamic ideas as Islamic. I don't want to go too much into details of the things they push. That's a subject of his own. But again, did the Sahabas just sit back when they were forced, physically forced, to give up their homes? No. They went out, they carried on, they moved forward. They knew Islam was the only way forward. There was nothing that gave any respect to them but Islam. And what lesson can we learn from what the Rasul did and the Sahabas that followed him? Is that they never, you know, shut their brains off, number one. They never sat back and became armchair critics, where they sat back and criticized everyone else out there. You know, everyone under the sun is either deviant or kafir. They never did that. They went out. They went out. They gave dawah. They spread the call of Islam, no matter what they faced. They spoke the haqq and people died. And the same situation we're in today. We're being cornered, we're being killed, we're being intellectually attacked. But yet, this is the same situation the Rasul was in. Where he was backed up to a corner, but yet he moved forward. And the same thing we must do today. No matter how far they take, no matter how far back they push us, we will always speak the haqq. We will always speak the haqq. Allah says it. You know, there will always be people in this world that will speak the haqq. And if it's not you, it's someone else. Why is the case of Barbar Ahmad so important? Because it's simple. Because he was a devoted Muslim. And we went through what his character is. He was a Pakistani 37-year-old living in Tooting, a normal guy who spoke out about the haqq and was arrested. That's every one of us in here. We might not be 37 or Pakistani, but we grew up, lived in England, London. We're not scholars, we're not politicians, we're not these, these great thinkers. Inshallah, some of the youngsters or some of you will be, inshallah, yeah. But what's the difference between this Barbar Ahmad and us? Literally nothing, but he spoke out. He spoke the haqq, and inshallah, Allah will reward him for what he's going through. May that prison be his entrance to Jannah. But we can never, at this point, we can never sit back. And I just want to finish off with, a few points. We should never be scared of helping out a fellow Muslim. We should never think that, it might endanger me, take away my rizq. Rizq is from Allah, money, your wealth. Take away my family. This is not what a Muslim thinks of. We depend on Allah and we always look forward. The other thing we don't do is we're never pessimistic. We never look at every situation as we're the weaker side. We're not weak. We're not weak. We have never been weak. Not militarily, not intellectually, we are never weak. We've always pushed forward. We've always, no matter what challenge we've faced, we've always overcome it. Number 3, we should never stop seeking knowledge. How do these 3 link? If we sit back, if we get worried about our own safety and not rely on Allah and what Allah has said, we've lost. This whole dunya will be a waste of time for you. A waste of time, literally. Number 2, if you do not seek knowledge, you won't know what Allah will have to say to you, what Allah has ordered for you to do. But the main thing we need to do, the main thing we need to understand is that our power is through unity. Our power is by sticking together. And there will be people out there who not only want to kill us, torture, bomb, whatever they want to do, not only want to intellectually reform Islam and separate us. These are things that's going to happen. But we could never sit back and think that, I've done my part. And we could never, hate on each other. If we do this, we're going to start falling apart. So my one advice to you, brothers, is, as Muslims, we should always look out for each other. Always look out for each other and always be aware of what's around the corner. Inshallah.